What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it is the Lazy Days channel and we're back at it again with some more history reaction for you guys today, and we have some Napoleon defeated by Aspern 1809 by Epic History TV. We're really enjoying this series so far.
Yep.
If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we're just looking forward to jumping straight into this one.
A link will be in the description below, down to Epic History TV, so if you want to go check his content out. It's worth it. It's really, really good.
Really, really enjoyable, and we're just going to jump straight into this one.
Let's do this.
An Epic History TV History March
So I'd like the French
collaboration,
to be defeated.
supported by our sponsor, Osprey Publishing. In 1809, France, under Napoleon Bonaparte, was the most powerful nation in Europe. But the French Emperor's invasion of Spain and Portugal the previous year had failed to deliver the easy victory he'd expected.
Yeah, it was a big old
With
blunder
many
for
of
him.
Napoleon's best troops and commanders now tied down in Spain, an old enemy prepared to challenge France once more.
Basically, his good boys are in.
A lot of his most
All of his-
trusted, most trusted devices
dear.
are there.
Court of Vienna is behaving very badly. It may have cause to repent. Napoleon to Joseph, 15th of January 1809. Ooh.
Austria had been preparing for war with France since her last humiliating defeat at Austerlitz in 1805. Now, with Napoleon busy in Spain and a British promise of cash subsidies, plus a supporting attack in northern Europe, it looked like the ideal time to strike. This time, Austria's armies would be led by Archduke Charles, Emperor Francis's younger brother. At 37, he was 2 years younger than Napoleon, but already had 15 years experience of high command. And he was learning from past defeats. He'd begun to reform the Austrian army along French lines, copying Napoleon's corps system and introducing new infantry tactics.
Good idea. Learn from your mistakes.
In the Napoleonic Wars, infantry fought in close order, packed together, standing shoulder to shoulder. But why present such an easy target for the enemy? First, command and control. Before radios, orders had to be relayed by shouted commands, drums or bugles. Difficult enough in the smoke and din of battle. Almost impossible if troops were scattered. Second, firepower. Smoothbore muskets were inaccurate beyond about 80 yards, so volley fire, firing en masse, was the best way to inflict physical and psychological damage on the enemy. Third, morale. Soldiers were much more willing to advance into danger or hold the line if they did so together as a unit, urging each other on.
Okay.
Fourth, defense against cavalry. Scattered infantry were easy targets for horsemen. Only by sticking together could they fight them off.
Okay.
Yeah.
The basic tactical unit of infantry was the battalion. A French line battalion had, in theory, 840 men, but in practice, nearer 500 to 600.
Okay.
Our example here has 605 men, a typical strength for a battalion on campaign. The men were divided into 6 companies, 4 fusilier companies, and 2 flank companies. On the right, the grenadiers, made up of the tallest, strongest men, often detached to form elite all-grenadier units.
Okay.
And on the left, the voltigeurs, specialist light infantry used for skirmishing in front of the battalion.
Makes sense.
Skirmishers moved independently, used cover, and fired at will to harass and unsettle the enemy, while preventing enemy skirmishers carrying out the same task.
So they sort of acted on their own. Like they don't.
So basically, skirmishers were the ones at the front that were just popping shots, taking cover,
and just sort of giving advice and getting sort of surrounding force going on and stuff like that.
and trying to just delay the enemy.
Or slowing down and stuff like that.
Oh, I couldn't imagine that, hiding behind rocks, getting shot at, and then you've got to get your gun out, you've got to poke the ball back in. And
Back then, it would be so difficult.
2 or 3 a minute, mate.
Oh, mate. But I don't know, scouts seem like one of the more interesting roles. within these sort of military tactics.
Armies also had specialist light infantry units for this role, such as the British 95th Rifles, French Chasseurs à Pied, and Austrian and Prussian Jäger battalions. The traditional battlefield formation was the line. All companies formed up alongside each other, 3 ranks deep. Line formation maximized the number of men who could fire their muskets at the enemy, and limited casualties from artillery fire.
Okay, that does make sense.
But it was extremely vulnerable to cavalry if it could be outflanked. And even for well-drilled troops, it was difficult to keep the line straight while advancing across broken ground.
Okay.
So for maneuver and attack, battalions usually formed a column of divisions. This was a more flexible formation that allowed the battalion to advance quickly.
That's really
It
interesting.
presented a larger target to enemy guns,
Oh,
firing solid round shot that would tear through several ranks, and far fewer men could fire their muskets at the enemy. Theoretically, therefore, the battalion would deploy into line before reaching the enemy. But carrying out this slow maneuver under fire wasn't always possible or sensible. So some commanders kept their men in column, relying on momentum to break the enemy line. This was a risky tactic that often worked against raw troops, but led to high casualties when facing better trained infantry, like British redcoats. A column could be closed up quickly to provide protection from cavalry, or if there was time, could form a square. With bayonets fixed, the battalion formed an all-round defence that often resembled more of a rectangle. Enemy cavalry could surround the battalion, but not break in, as horses won't charge a solid wall of men and steel. But an infantry square was extremely vulnerable to artillery fire.
yeah, okay.
And could only move very slowly. Changing quickly and smoothly from one formation to another,
really smart, though.
especially under fire,
It's so well
required
done.
training,
Yeah.
practice, and experience.
So you've got to then command what? 3 divisions to get into formation.
Just the whole thing, but
Under
this
fire.
is only one battalion.
Yeah.
And then how many battalions have you got working independently in an actual warfare?
Yeah,
You've
and you
got
have to use each one
5
differently.
battalion. Yeah, it's really interesting though. But obviously each battalion is commanded by a commander. And
Yeah.
then Napoleon tells that commander what to do, you know, or like along them lines. It's just, yeah, it's really interesting to see how he sort of like made this sort of ranking system that is used, and that it had more than one strategic value, you know,
Yeah.
and that's why they went for that, you know. And again, I bet that took a long time and a lot of mistakes to realise
Yeah.
how to get it to work.
And I like seeing how their tactics were done back in the day.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
when they had horses and they had just ball shots.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all they had.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different sort of style.
Yeah, it's a lot more up personal, you know. And you see a lot more dead in those times than you do in warfare now, you know.
You'd literally be fighting amongst corpses anyway.
Yeah, that's it. Whereas it's a bit
If
of
you-
like,
yeah.
it's more tactical insurgents now. On my understanding of warfare, obviously we don't know because of the Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's probably different out there. But everything before the Ukraine and after the World War II was more sort of tactical insurgents, to my belief. Really, it's interesting.
In 1809, the Austrian army began to use the battalion mass formation, crude
Okay.
but more suited to hastily trained conscripts. This was a dense column with limited firepower and huge vulnerability to enemy
Yeah, I was
cannon,
about to say.
but it could quickly close up to repel cavalry using the same principle as the square, but without the complex drill. It
Okay.
was much more maneuverable. Napoleon, warned by his spies that Austria was preparing for war, left Spain and raced back to Paris, arriving on the 24th of January 1809. The French army in Germany, commanded by Marshal Berthier, would need urgent reinforcement. So Napoleon summoned units from Spain, called up young conscripts, and soldiers from his German allies in the Confederation of the Rhine. La Grande Armée was no longer the finely honed instrument of 1805, but with Napoleon at its head, it was still a formidable force.
Okay.
Right.
Archduke Charles ordered diversionary attacks in Poland and northern Italy, but launched his main attack against France's ally, Bavaria, on the 10th of April. It came a week earlier than Napoleon had expected and caught the French Emperor by surprise.
Oh no.
Charles was relying on a rapid advance.
Just the ability to catch your opponent surprised and like catch them off guard is so strong in a fight, let alone a war and a battle. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can end a fight like in a street if you just get a punch like out of nowhere. It could just end it, and I imagine it's the same with a warfare.
Yeah.
You get a battle out of nowhere.
If you can get 1,000 men up the hill without anyone realising, that's a massive advantage.
Or just like just catch your opponent off guard, strike there and then. It could do such a devastating blow that there's just no more fights afterwards. You know?
Last-minute change of plans, torrential rain, and a slow-moving baggage train slowed progress to a crawl. Marshal Berthier was a brilliant chief of staff to Napoleon, but an indecisive field commander. His forces were too widely dispersed, and Marshal Davout's Third Corps was dangerously isolated at Regensburg. Charles ordered his corps to converge and destroy it. But on the 17th of April, Napoleon arrived at Donauwörth to take over command. He immediately ordered Davout to withdraw from his exposed position. It was too late for him to escape without a fight. Davout's Third Corps was one of the best in the Grande Armée, and in a fast-moving battle across wooded hills, the heroes of Auerstadt threw back the Austrians. Despite the heroism of General Major Liechtenstein, badly wounded, leading his troops forward. Third Corps escaped the encirclement.
How many casualties?
The Battle of Teugn-House was the
Yeah.
start of Napoleon's so-called four-day campaign. First, he used Marshal Lefebvre's Bavarian 7th Corps and a provisional corps under Marshal Lannes to drive a wedge into the Austrian army. Then he pursued its left wing towards Landshut, believing he was following the main Austrian army. French troops and their German allies stormed the town's bridge to win a hard-fought victory. But Napoleon realized that Archduke Charles was not at Landshut, and that, once again, he'd left Marshal Davout to face the main enemy force. Sending Marshal Bessières in pursuit of the Austrian left wing, Napoleon swung north, falling on the Austrian 4th Corps at Eckmühl. The French and their German allies won their 4th victory in as many days.
He's just got
Charles's main force.
So
it's
strong.
just honestly, like the guy that he put in charge before had no military tactics, and he literally nearly took out 2 of his platoons, like 2 divisions, right? He's come in, he's then got that platoon out of there, pushed them away, and then split a wedge in between them.
Yeah, man.
Within days.
That's it, and he's now like, he's just so quick because he's now also fallen on Charles as well.
And he realised that he wasn't there, so he's just like, right, you finish them off, we're all going to head up here.
Yeah.
He's got tactics, man.
Was still intact, and hoping to keep it so, he ordered a rapid retreat across the Danube. The French pursued, storming the walled city of Regensburg, which they knew as Ratisbon, with its vital stone bridge. Napoleon put Marshal Lannes in charge of the assault. When the attack faltered, Lannes threatened to lead the next charge in person, and his men, suitably chastised, took the city.
To be fair though, he's done that twice.
Napoleon was hit in the foot by a spent bullet, causing widespread alarm, but it proved to be a superficial wound. Stubborn Austrian resistance had allowed Archduke Charles and his army to escape across the Danube. Napoleon had cut the Austrian army in half, but both sections now retreated in good order towards Vienna. Napoleon led his forces in pursuit, detaching Lefebvre's Bavarian Corps to deal with a popular revolt in Tyrol, and Third Corps and the Württemberg 8th Corps to guard his line of communications. Charles chose not to defend the capital, which surrendered on the 13th of May after a short bombardment. Instead, Charles and the Austrian army lay in wait across the Danube.
Okay.
Napoleon was now down to 80,000 men, facing 110,000 Austrians. Charles's army had fought bravely and well throughout the campaign, but Napoleon still had a low opinion of Austrian troops and decided to attack.
Mistakes. Two cannon. All men are equal. Napoleon Bonaparte. It is that, two cannon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, two cannon. All men are equal. Napoleon Bonaparte.
On the night of the 20th of May, French engineers hastily built a series of floating bridges between the river islands of the Danube.
That's insane, man.
French troops began to cross.
They're really going to try this.
They're going for
By
it.
noon the next day, Napoleon had most of Massena's 4th Corps and his cavalry across the river, about 24,000 men and 40 guns, holding the villages of Aspern and Essling. Napoleon expected the Austrians to retreat once more, and that he'd only face a rear guard. But reports soon arrived that the entire Austrian army was advancing against him in 5 attack columns, 90,000 men and 300 cannon.
Whoa.
The situation got even worse. The Austrians began to float heavy barges and obstacles downriver to smash through the flimsy. Each time, Napoleon's only supply route was cut off for several hours.
No, that's so smart.
That is so smart.
To smash through the flimsy French bridge. Each time, Napoleon's only supply route was cut off for several hours, causing critical delays to the arrival of reinforcements and ammunition.
Oh no.
The battle began around 2:45 p.m. as infantry of the Austrian 1st Column attacked Aspern. The village was soon under attack from 3 sides. General Molitor's French garrison clung on desperately, fighting hand-to-hand in the streets and suffering 50% casualties.
Jesus.
To support the defenders of Aspern, Napoleon ordered cavalry to charge the Austrian 3rd Column. But they could not break through the Austrian infantry, closed up in their battalion mass formation. At 6 p.m, Archduke Charles ordered General Bellegarde's 2nd Column to take Aspern at any cost. Charles himself rode among the front ranks, urging the men forward. In ferocious fighting, the Austrians took the village. Napoleon immediately sent in newly arrived reinforcements to recapture it. About the same time, the Austrian 4th Column began its attack on the village of Essling, where Marshal Lannes had taken charge of defences while he waited for his own corps to cross the Danube. The first Austrian assault was repulsed. The veteran French cavalry commander General d'Espagne led his cuirassiers in pursuit, but was hit by grape shot and died of his wounds. Around 9 p.m, the Austrian 5th Column finally arrived in position and made its first attack against Essling, which was thrown back by Lannes.
Mate, Napoleon is just surrounded.
He's good. He's good though. He's holding them off.
Yeah, but I don't think he's got to live for long, Joe.
And men got what rest they could among the dead and the wounded.
Battle of Aspern, day 2, I think it was.
Yeah, the Battle of Aspern, day 2.
Overnight, 2nd Corps and the Imperial Guard crossed the Danube to reinforce Napoleon's
Right, so it's getting a bit of reinforcements.
which now numbered 71,000. and 150 guns. But then the bridge broke again, leaving Davout's 3rd Corps still waiting to cross. Nevertheless, Napoleon decided to attack, using 2nd Corps to break the Austrian centre. But first, Aspern would have to be retaken. Heavy fighting broke out in the village before dawn. By 7 AM, it was back in French hands. At Essling,
regardless of how, he's starting to fonder, I'll have to give it to the French. Their commanders under Napoleon's rule knew what they were doing, and they could fight. They could rally their men up, and they would go in for it all. I've got to give them that. That is just 100%. Insane.
Heavy fighting broke out in the village before dawn. By 7 AM, it was back in French hands. At Essling, fresh Austrian attacks were fought off by General Lasalle's cavalry and units of the Young Guard. With both flanks secure, Napoleon launched his main attack in the centre with Lannes' 2nd Corps. Austrian guns poured fire into the advancing French ranks. General Saint-Hilaire, leading the attack, a hero of Austerlitz and Jena, had his foot blown off, a wound that proved fatal. Archduke Charles sent his Grenadier Reserve forward to strengthen the line. The French infantry, under torrential fire, began to fall back.
Oh, mate.
At this critical moment, the French bridge over the Danube was broken again, halting the vital flow of reinforcements and ammunition.
No!
Oh, mate.
Oh, no! Oh, mate, these bridges are not...
It's not going well for him.
It's not going well at all, mate.
He really shouldn't have.
Oh, shouldn't have crossed the river.
He shouldn't have crossed.
At this critical moment, the French bridge over the Danube was broken again, halting the vital flow of reinforcements and ammunition to Napoleon's army. By 2 PM, the French had been driven out of Aspern once more. Heavy fighting continued in Essling, which was briefly captured by the Austrians, then retaken by the Young Guard. Napoleon knew his army could do no more. At 4 PM, he ordered his exhausted cavalry to make a last charge to keep the enemy at bay, then gave the order to retreat. Archduke Charles, whose own army had suffered huge losses and was low on ammunition, was content to watch the French withdraw to the island of Lobau. In the final moments of the battle, Marshal Lannes, one of Napoleon's finest commanders and closest friends, was hit by a cannonball that smashed both his legs. He died of his wounds a week later. It was a deep blow to the Emperor.
He's lost like 3 of his best men.
Yeah.
In one battle.
What a loss for the French and for me. Napoleon on the death of Marshal Lannes.
That'd take a hit to you, man. Jesus, that would take a hit.
The 2-day Battle of Aspern-Essling was Napoleon's first major defeat, caused by his overconfidence and hasty planning. Both sides suffered heavy losses, and Napoleon avoided a much greater disaster only because of the exhaustion of the Austrian army. The French Emperor had learned new respect for the Austrians. Under Archduke Charles, they had fought bravely, with greater confidence, organization, and leadership. Within days of his defeat, Napoleon had summoned reinforcements to join him on the Danube, and begun planning his revenge.
Oh, he's not happy. That's not the end of it. I need to know what's going to be happening and what he's going to be doing next.
Man, is he?
No, he's not
a happy man. Oh dear.
I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next and how he takes his revenge.
Oh, sweet G. I can't believe he's just lost 3 of his best men.
It's insane.
Just on his overconfidence.
I know.
Silly.
If you're enjoying Epic TV's content, a link will be in the description box down below. If you're enjoying our content, then please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we're going to catch you in the next one.
In a bit.